A new poll shows President Biden and Donald Trump are tied in a hypothetical 2024 rematch, though they're both running 50 points behind Kilme. King Charles.
Saturday Night Live, they keep trying anyway, don't they? No matter what. I guess, is the writer's strike back on again, Michael? Is that what happened with the... They did have one kind of funny skit on Saturday Night Live. It's making the rounds on Al Gore's amazing internet. And maybe I'll talk about that, and maybe I won't. Saturday Night Live, you know. I remember when it was a comedy show. You remember when it was a comedy show? I think it was better. I think it was better then. Kinda. Much of the time. Well, happy Monday and welcome. Were you able to get any anti-Semitic violence over the weekend? Because it's all the rage. You know, the Democrats have made it fashionable again. They've brought it back. And boy, have they brought it back. It's a madhouse. The whole world is a madhouse. And isn't it fascinating that so many on the left have revealed themselves. I suppose people like me, I didn't have to reveal myself. My positions were already well known, generally speaking. But lefties, college campuses, news media, making their almost bizarro anti-Israel, pro-terrorist, pro-radical Islamic Jihad, pro-terrorist army, pro-Hamas, pro-Islamic Jihad, pro-Hezbollah, pro-Iran perspectives known to all of us now, and now we can see. And there's a lot to talk about. Who is it? They took over the Brooklyn Bridge. That was on Saturday. They took over the Brooklyn Bridge, I think, right? The jihadis did. There are a lot of jihadis living among us, and a lot of them call themselves Democrats and self-identify as liberals, though they may be suffering from gender dysphoria, although I guess that goes without saying, doesn't it? And lots of violence on campus. You see, Cornell University is back. We had that professor. He was from Cornell last week, right? Who said, what did he say? That he loved jihad, something like that. I think he said he loved jihad. He really likes it a lot.
It was exhilarating. It was energizing.
It was exhilarating.
And if they weren't exhilarated by this challenge to the monopoly of violence, by this shifting of the balance of power, then they would not be human. I was exhilarated.
Professor Russell Rickford at the Cornell University, and he was talking about the massacre and the rape and the decapitations and things. It was exhilarating. He's still I think he's been suspended. He's on leave. I think he's on leave for the moment. But really, he should be gassed, right? I mean, he should probably put him in the back of a van and drive him around and gas him, something like that. I think he'd feel at home. He'd feel at home that way. Well, Cornell is back in the news, Cornell University of New York State, because they've got all kinds of genocidal anti-Jew stuff going on there. And the administrators, what are the administrators doing, Michael? I haven't seen a lot. And the Attorney General of the state of New York, she is a radical left-wing extremist, and she weighed in with this milquetoast kind of, well, that should be frowned upon statement when there's a group at Cornell calling, what is it for the extermination, of a race of people, but that's okay, because when you're Democrats, it's all right. Jewish people need to be killed is the headline of the Post. If you see a Jewish, quote, person, end quote, because, you can't really call them people, so you got to put person in quotation marks. If you see a Jewish, quote, person, end quote, on campus, follow them home and slit their throats. This is the Post. And rats need to be eliminated from Cornell. That's the statement from self-identified Democrat, self-identified liberal. I mean, I got to say, if you're a Democrat, it is a time for choosing. If you're a Jewish Democrat, it's a time for removing your head from your rectum, because you really got to start thinking in real terms here. But it's amazing. So I'll update you on that, because they've got The president of Cornell University posted a statement in response to that. It was rather milquetoast. And the radical left-wing extremists, Attorney General of the state of New York, she's weighed in too, and it may not be the response that everybody had hoped for or expected. So we've got that. A look at pro-Israel versus pro-Palestine protests. The Daily Signal from the Heritage Foundation has the story. There is a very, very big difference. Hundreds storm airport in Russia in anti-Semitic riot over arrival of plane from Israel. Wonder who orchestrated that. Because you got commies there, and Russia, the Soviet Union, they brutalized the Jewish population there forever and ever. Russia shuts airport after mob encircles flight from Israel, and amazing stuff. The Washington Post had a story over the weekend. The most racist president in modern history revels in violence. I know you think they're talking about Joe Biden or maybe Barack Obama, but they're not. They're talking about Donald Trump. That's pretty amazing stuff. And there's this guy, and it's resurfaced, a Saudi writer who posted, he's from Saudi Arabia. That's what makes him a Saudi writer. He's a writer from Saudi Arabia. And he posted a video. I know he posted it a couple of years ago in which he was pleading with Benjamin Netanyahu to wipe the Palestinians off the world. Said, English is not his first language, but, off the face of the earth, I'm pretty sure is what he meant to say. So that's it's kind of, a little reminder that Palestinians are not beloved in the region by the Egyptians or the Saudis or the Lebanese or the Jordanians or anybody else because, they got a reputation. Know what I'm saying? Remarkable stuff. And speaking of Democrats, New York City's racial equity head, they have a head of racial equity. Write your own jokes. New York City's racial equity head, Linda Tigani, shared anti-Semitic posts, and it turns out that the Democrats picked her to be their head of racial equity, and she sounds like Osama bin Laden, but that's okay because it's all among Democrats, and as you know, it's a circle fest in a hot tub, so pay no attention. The newly appointed NYC racial equity chair has history of anti-Semitic posts from the river to the sea, just to name one. Wipe the Jews off the map. Pretty amazing stuff. And it's kind of remarkable when you juxtapose the Saudi writer in 2020 asking Netanyahu to wipe the Palestinians off the face of the earth. Compare him to the Democrat Party's pick to be the racial equity head in New York City, our most populous city, where she is chanting from the river to the sea. She wants to wipe the Jews off the map. The Saudis want to wipe the Palestinians off the map, but Democrats are a very confused bunch. Gender dysphoria, racism, they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, something that I want to point out, too, I was watching the news this morning, and this guy on Fox News, Trey Yingst, he's reporting from Israel, and he has been since the beginning, and he's doing a very good job. And he reminded us of something today, that while the so-called Gaza Strip is being bombed quite strategically, surgically by Israel and that terrible man, Benjamin Netanyahu, American liberals despise, they've been told, I've talked about this for years, the Democrats have the power of point and hate. They can point at anyone, and the entire Democrat Party hates them all at once. It can be Donald Trump. It can be Benjamin Netanyahu. It can be a school teacher that doesn't want men pretending to be women competing in sports and things like that. It can be anyone. The point and hate feature of the Democrat Party. It's quite remarkable and very potent. But Trey Yingst pointed out this morning that while the Gaza is being bombed, something the news media continues to fail to point out because, as you know, the most insidious power the media has is the power to ignore. Gaza, the people of Gaza, the radical Islamic jihadi armies in Gaza, primarily the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and perhaps the better-known Hamas, they continued to fire rockets and missiles at Israel, killing the Jews and targeting the Jews, just the civilians. They're not targeting military installations or anything. They just want to kill the Jews because from the river to the sea, as the Democrat head of racial equity in New York would say. And the Democrat Party has adopted that should be their slogan in 2024. From the river to the sea, wipe the Jews off the map. That's your Democrat Party slogan for 2024. Kind of weird, I know. But the news media, they're all about Israel expands ground war against Hamas as observer fear civilian casualties in Gaza. Does anybody fear civilian casualties in Israel? Because the troglodytes continue to fire rockets and missiles. So I guess it's actually a war. And in Gaza, plunder. You see, the Gazans formed a mob, and hundreds and maybe thousands of Gazans, we call them Gazans now. Gazans plunder the United Nations food supplies as civil order breaks down on the war-torn Gaza Strip. Civil order, was there a civil order before? Because if this is what civil order means, maybe once again they use the words, but they don't know what they mean. So they continue to fire missiles and rockets at Israel, and nobody pays any attention to that because maybe they're not very good at it, just like everything else in the history of the world. But never mind that. So they got that, but they continue to fire rockets and missiles at the Jews, trying to murder them. But pay no attention to that. It's the coverage is as if Israel invaded Gaza one fine day out of the blue and are being mean to civilians just for the heck of it. Now, again, the Gazans plunder the United Nations relief supplies, food supplies. And I'm reminded once again that you probably shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you. I wonder if they're familiar with that turn of phrase, the so-called Palestinian people. Maybe you shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you, and it's more than just the hand that feeds you. You know, they can't, their water supply is the Mediterranean Sea. Did you know this? But it's not that they've adapted to drinking salt water. They desalinate the water with desalination plants there, which require fuel, like, petrol, they might call it petrol, gasoline or diesel to run the plants that desalinate water from the Mediterranean Sea, which is what California should be doing and should have been doing for the last 50 years. But liberals are too stupid or corrupt in California to figure that out too. Hey, we've got another drought this year. Pull another bong, pull another line of coke, do some fentanyl and shut up. But in any case, they, and where do they get their fuel to desalinate the water? From the Jews. Where do they get their electricity? From the Jews. And now the news media is all like, oh, I can't believe they're without power and they're without water. Well, maybe they shouldn't shoot in the head the person that gives them clean water and electricity. You ever think? Every day is an IQ test. And if you're with Hamas or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, you're probably a very, very low IQ person. In fact, did you see there was a study out on that recently about how low the average IQ was in the Gaza? It's quite alarming. Really, they should be riding around on three-wheeled bikes wearing hockey helmets and ringing a bell. Ding, 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 ding. These are not, honestly, just sit down and shut up. You know what? Let's have a ceasefire. When the troglodytes from hell stop murdering the Jews or doing everything they can to murder the Jews, then maybe we could have a ceasefire. But that day has not arrived, has it? No, it hasn't. Also, speaking of college campuses, pretty amazing stuff. Here's the New York Times. I've got a story from the New York Times because at the Georgetown University, which is supposed to be a Catholic university, they love the troglodytes and they hate the Jews. It's kind of an amazing thing. And it turns out that's not a new development. That's not a recent development at Georgetown University. In 1940 now, before Pearl Harbor, but well into the invasion of Poland, September of 1939, the Georgetown University students poll leading personalities of the world. How much did they love Adolf Hitler back then? Kind of interesting. And on college campuses everywhere, I'm scared to go to class is the headline. Violence erupts at Tulane University. That's in New Orleans. During dueling Israel-Palestine rallies, The jihad is here, boys and girls. It's in the United States, America. Pretty amazing stuff. Yeah, slit their throats at Cornell. And what's being done about it? Well, liberals kind of shrug. Also, Kamala Harris was on 60 Minutes last night. Not for all 60 minutes. She doesn't have that much to say. We've got that. And the Democrats are beginning to fear, again, they do it over and over again, that Joe Biden may not be the best candidate for them next year, with Jim Vandehei. Vandehei. Bally High. Oh no, the White House is afraid that Joe Biden is very severely brain damaged. And in Washington, D.C., crime is so bad that business owners are fleeing like the city's on fire. And the shootings, because Democrats love shooting people. 18 injured, 2 dead. That's, I'll get to that one. 1 dead, 8 others injured. 22-year-old charged in shooting of 18 people. He's a Democrat, as it turns out, and the Republican field as well. We're at 888-630-9625. Hey, it's Chris Plant. Excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Ah, yes. On Friday, just before we left, we spotted a news story here in Washington, D.C., which is representative of and emblematic of a phenomenon that we're witnessing nationwide across this great land of ours, which is very much in peril. D.C. liquor store owner says she is leaving due to rising crime. Angela Allred, owner of Imperial Wine and Spirits, says her business is targeted by thieves almost daily. And here, this nice lady, there's a picture of her, downtown Washington, D.C. business, says retail theft is so rampant and so regular that the thieves come in and they load up on her liquor, on her product, and they menacingly and threateningly, because they're young men, they're Democrats, they pretty much all look the same, and they steal and they rob her blind, and they threaten her and menace her because what's she going to do about it? Other than maybe shoot them, but of course they're mostly packing stuff. So I want to update you on, I want to explain this story to you because she, is trying to be a business owner in a Democrat city, and it's happening. I've talked about all the businesses, big and small, leaving San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and elsewhere and New York. And this is because Democrats decided to defund the police. Defund the police. That's a Democrat Party ethos. Now, I was, laughing or appalled or something this morning. The Biden administration, that is Joe Biden, remember he was going to restore our standing in the world, and he was a foreign policy expert. He's an expert in Swanson TV dinners and the remote control for his 19-inch tube TV, where he watches daily episodes of Hazel. Those are about the only things in which he is expert. But today, the headline is, U.S., that's Biden and the Biden White House, urges Israel against Gaza ground war. So they should sit there on their hands while the troglodytes fire missiles and rockets at their babies every day. How dare you respond? And of course, you pick a fight with Muhammad Ali, and in that region, Israel is Muhammad Ali, and Gaza is Chuck Wepner. Nobody remembers Chuck Wepner. He was known as the Bayonne Bleeder. And Muhammad Ali cut up his face so bad that he could never show up in public again. But honestly, you pick a fight with Israel when you are these troglodytes in the Gaza, who, by the way, were given 25 or 26 miles of beachfront property, and turned it into hell. Nice job, Gaza. Nice job, so-called Palestinians. Amazing stuff. So Israel is sustaining rocket and missile attacks from the Gaza, and the Biden administration is urging Israel to not launch a ground war against the people that are firing missiles and rockets at them on a daily basis because their base, I guess, is now more Hamas-leaning. They're pro-Hamas and anti-Israel. Just don't call them anti-Semites. Never mind that there's only one Jewish state on the planet Earth, and they're anti that Jewish state. But set that aside. Amazing stuff. Now, Democrats also run big cities across America. They run them into the side of a mountain at a high rate of speed. They run them off the tracks. They, again, San Francisco, I couldn't even list all the things. It was Salesforce gone, and the flagship store for Whole Foods gone, and grocery stores fleeing, and how many? You got like Target stores fleeing Chicago, and here's the reason. Crime. The problem is not our guns, it's your sons. You're raising so many criminals. Oh, speaking of which, there was it's not funny, but there is a pattern emerging here. And the Washington Post has the story today. D.C. carjacking attempt leads to fatal shooting. I was telling you stories last week, or earlier at the beginning of this month. Today is the 30th of October. At the beginning of this month, there was the carjacking, and they were all teenage boys, and they carjacked somebody at gunpoint, were driving the stolen car around that they had carjacked at gunpoint, when a police officer noticed that the car that they had stolen at gunpoint had a dealer tag on it, the paper license plate, and that the dealer tag was expired. So the police officer went to pull over the carload of carjackers, not knowing it was a carload of carjackers. But the carload of carjackers punched it and took off at a high rate of speed, and they crashed into a tree, and the car burst into flames, and all four of the teens were burned to death. It sounded like that. And it was terrible, right? And then the other day we had, just last week, we had two young women, because this was women's liberation, Democrat style. Two young women had carjacked two different cars at gunpoint from people who owned them. And the two teenage girls were driving apparently that it's not even clear if they knew each other. This is how many carjackings there are in Washington, D.C. these days. One was in Prince George's County in Maryland, just across the D.C. line, and the other was in Northeast Washington, D.C., the two carjackings. These two teenage girls with their carjacked cars stolen at gunpoint crashed into each other at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And the crash happened at such a high rate of speed that one of the teenage girls was killed, and the other one was not killed. But that happened just last week. And last news report I saw, Washington Post doesn't care. They could care less. It would be racist to tell you the actual story. But one teenage girl killed, and beginning of the month, 4 teenagers killed in a fiery crash. Now, the front page of the Metro sectional, they love their Metro sectional. D.C. carjacking attempt leads to fatal shooting. Police, they love their colons. Victim fired handgun at juvenile. Now, this is fascinating. Off-duty federal officer was on his way to work. An off-duty, now I actually saw this, my best girl and I saw this, that a teenager had been shot and killed at, I think, 6th and D Street downtown, which is a place where normal people go, been shot to death. And we said, oh, that's kind of an unusual place for a teenager to be shot to death. I wonder what happened. Well, here's the update on the story. An off-duty federal security officer on his way to work Saturday night fatally shot a 13-year-old boy who officers said was one of 2 Utes who tried to carjack him in the district's Penn Quarter neighborhood near public safety buildings and an entertainment complex. Public safety buildings. With buildings with locks on them. What is that exactly? According to D.C. police. Police said in a statement that the officer, waiting for his shift to start, was sitting in his personal vehicle. Well, where else would he be sitting? The 600 block of D Street Northwest, D like Delta, near the D.C. Superior Court building, appropriately, when two youths approached him shortly after 10 p.m. and demanded his vehicle. The officer told investigators the youths demanded that he get out of the vehicle, and one of them had his hand in his front waistband pocket as if he had a handgun, according to the police report. Now, as the off-duty officer got out of his vehicle, police said he told investigators he produced a handgun and shot one of the perpetrators. All right, and now it's announced on the front page because maybe they got a guy they can lynch here. Maybe they got, somebody defended himself against criminals, and the Washington Post is against that. They're for the criminals. So the report says that one youth was struck in the chest. The other ran away. Run away, run away. It was not immediately clear if the youth who was shot was the same youth who had his hand in his pocket with the gun thing. And police said in a statement they have the officer's gun in their possession. They did not recover the other weapon. But this is pretty much, everyday stuff in Washington, D.C. In fact, they do go on to say that carjackings in the District of Columbia have soared 108% this year compared to last year. And last year was a record high. And now up 108% carjackings, right? And they said as of Friday, police said there have been 821 carjackings in the city. We have 61 square miles of land in the District of Columbia, 821 carjackings so far this year. In an incident last week, D.C. police said a 16-year-old girl driving a carjacked vehicle crashed into a utility pole in northeast Washington and was killed. Police arrested a 15-year-old girl who they said was also involved in the carjacking. The teen was previously in custody of the city's Department of Youth Rehabilitation. See, because that's the kid prison. Because of robbery and theft charges, teenage girls in the District of Columbia. But the judge said she ordered the teen released because the agency had no available housing for her. See, this is a Democrat-run city. They're doing such a great job. Violent crime in D.C. is up 41% this year compared to the same period in 2022. Now, that's your District of Columbia. That's Chicago. That's New York. That's San Francisco. That is Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. That's Los Angeles. That is the United States of America in 2023. And the Democrats defunded the police and reduced the number of police. How many? We're short 500 or 600 police officers, I think, in Washington, D.C. And Democrats. This is because Democrats. Now, let's bring it down to ground level here for a moment. D.C. liquor store owner, a nice-looking woman, seems to be a pleasant woman. D.C. liquor store owner says she's leaving due to rising crime. Angela Allred, the owner of Imperial Wine and Spirits, says her business is targeted by thieves almost daily. Downtown D.C. business owner says the rise in retail theft and overall crime in the district is forcing her to close her wine and spirit store by the end of the year. Angela Allred says shoplifting comes with the territory of owning a business in Washington, D.C. But after 7 years, she says the theft is brazen, violent, and more common. Now, we have some audio because WUSA, the CBS station in Washington, D.C., the CBS affiliate, they went and did a story on the lady. Maybe it's, one of their employees' neighborhood liquor store or something, but the lady says, that's it. And Channel 9 WUSA talking to Ms. Allred, the owner of the store, and it really is, she's in what should be, it's a trendy neighborhood. It's a fashionable neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where people spend $1 million on a 2-bedroom condominium. 12th Street Northwest, and she says she's targeted daily.
Now people are just running in the store, grabbing it, and then leaving. And as they're leaving, they're actually laughing at us because they know that there's nothing we can do.
They're laughing at us. And woman-owned business. And the thugs come in and they're criminals and they're violent and they're menacing and they're threatening. And the nice woman is... she's decided that that's it. That's enough WUSA. And the nice business owner in Washington, D.C., Angela Allred.
She says just yesterday she was forced to confront a man taking a $50 bottle.
He then started to curse at me, pushed me as he walked out the door.
Pushed me.
These small businesses are left to police themselves. Someone comes in every day and steals a $50 bottle of wine. I mean, you're talking about a claim of loss of merchandise for over $18,000 every single year.
And so she has decided to leave. Her business will no longer be there. So the thieves are going to go steal from somebody else and continue the pattern because in D.C., the mayor is anti-police. She came up, she had a press conference last week where she laughed and smiled for the TV cameras and she came up, what do they call it? The ACT, the like Acting on Criminal Trends Act. Everything has to be an acronym. And I think their solution is to do nothing but hold a press conference. And the police are, of course, the bad guys in the eyes of the Democrat Party because the Democrat Party are the criminals who are doing all the stealing and the shooting people and the carjacking and the murders and the mass shootings. And, that's the Democrat Party. And the problem is not our guns, it's your sons. So you raise these criminals. We want to take them off the street so that we can have a civil society. And you attack the cops until the cops stop policing as a verb, right? Just crazy, man, crazy. Now, the Washington Post had they've got a racist there by the name of Colbert King, and he types on behalf of the left at the Washington Post. An alleged offender on policing in D.C., quote, call them. They won't do anything. This is the criminal saying, go ahead, call the police. They won't do anything. And that's because the Democrats have neutered the police and defunded the police and reduced the number of police so that, pimps and thieves run free and good men die like dogs, to use a selected clip from Hunter S. Thompson. Monday's disgusting attack on a D.C. daycare teacher walking with 24 toddlers was shocking enough. It was actually a couple of teachers walking with little kids, little kids, toddlers, and they walk with little strings around their wrists and stuff. Teachers are walking and two Democrat men came up and assaulted them. But even more troubling was the way the alleged perpetrator seemed so confident that he had no reason to fear being held accountable by the D.C. justice system. The incident in which a man allegedly exposed himself, he's a Democrat, and assaulted two teachers taking the children for their daily outing occurred in the Bloomingdale neighborhood of Northwest Washington, D.C. According to the teachers, who is Mariela Vita Diaz Villalobos, the kids screamed at the man to let her go. Diaz Villalobos ended up with a bloody nose and spent the night in the hospital because she was beaten by a Democrat man, a grown man. The second teacher was also punched in the head and face, multiple punches because this criminal. Now, the two women that were beaten and assaulted, they explained the assailant, 38-year-old Russell Fred Dunkley III, who is a Democrat, has been charged with 2 counts of simple assault, lewd acts, misdemeanor, sexual abuse of a child, assault on a police officer. I'm sure he's back on the street, obstructing, aggravated panhandling. And the thing is, they said, call the police. We're going to call the police. And he said, go ahead. Here's what he said to them. Go ahead. They won't do anything. Go ahead. They won't do anything. because the Democrats run the city of Washington, and they have neutered the police. And the police have said, well, look, I'm just not going to do that anymore. Police as a verb, aggressively, and get the criminals off the street. Also, did you see the attack at La Diplomate on 14th Street, where I think Joe Biden went to dinner there? He orders takeout from there. And 2, it was racial. No, I think it was 3 black guys riding ATVs. These ATVs, the big 4-wheeled motorcycle. There are gangs of these guys riding around D.C. Got off and beat the hell out of 2 white guys. You know, if it was 3 or 4 white guys that beat up 2 black guys, it'd be big national news. But it was the opposite, so it's not even local news. Beaten, mob violence, fashionable neighborhood again, $1 million 2-bedroom condos. And this is because Democrats are running our cities.
Why doesn't the government do something? That's what I'd like to know.
What can they do? They're only people, just like us.
People my foot, they're Democrats.
I have not gone to the telephones yet, so let us do that. Let's go to Erica, calling from Winchester, Virginia. Love Winchester, Virginia. Erica, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Thank you, Chris. So my thought is, looking at the economy today and the rate of inflation, everything is harder and harder and harder to afford. And this is all laid at Biden's feet and his administration. So he's making the economy so bad that we can't afford anything, even just to basically live, thereby driving people in their minds that the only way they can survive is to go out and steal from other people, creating more and more loss. And so where does this stop? Because it seems like Biden is actually creating criminals.
Yeah, Biden and the Democrats are creating. And also, you know, look, they told us that the riots were mostly peaceful, that looting is reparations. They've made it very fashionable to be a criminal. I think they do that because they know it's their kids and they're Democrat constituents, all these criminals. So they coddle them. And in the meantime, our cities are dying of murder.